Okay, well, I guess it's time to tackle the carburetor. Here is, so how does this sit on? Like this. This is my main gas line. There's still some gas leaking out of it. Let's take off this boot. That goes to the air. So we'll sit. There's my bowls. That's my drain. It's a pretty complicated carburetor. There's where my throttle goes in. Here. This is the throttle here. This would be the choke. Okay, so this is the mount where my throttle cables come in. Let's take that off here. Okay. That's my idle. This is choke. This is the throttle. Open, close. Actually, it looks pretty clean in there, but we'll get it all apart to see what's going on. I don't know that I want to take all these pieces off. I want to get them all back on there with all the springs and stuff. Well, let's start with the full pull, I guess, huh? There's this other piece on the side of the full pull. Little carburetor on the side of the carburetor. Got a little jet in here. Dust boot from there. Okay, well, it's not bad. There's a little sticky stuff in there. But it's not too bad off. That looks still in pretty good shape. This is not too bad in here. Yeah, everything's looking pretty good in here. If I take that apart, I'm never going to get it back together. There's no way. this cleaned up nice enough that I can paint it. I'm worried about all the little pieces on the body there, painting that. May only be able to paint some parts because I don't want to paint over all of those moving springs and stuff maybe. We'll see. I'm not going to polish these parts, but I do want them clean enough that paint will stick. So I'm just going to put this piece back together, only so much that when I paint it, I don't have to mask the parts that aren't touching. And clean up all of these bolts. They're all a little crusty. They might as well get paint on them too. Biggest thing that I want to make sure is I mask everything off, because I don't want a little airport to get blocked up with paint. There's some little ports in here that I don't want to get paint in them and get them all plugged up. Okay, let's give it some paint. I got this high temperature black paint, and I know this isn't going to see high temperatures, but I wanted it to match what the color is on the engine so that they look the same. Okay, let's take this over and paint it. Zoom in here so you can see how dirty this is. Oh, it's pretty rank. Get all of this grit out of here. I don't know that there's any way I'm going to get all of this clean enough that paint will stick to it. I might just paint it anyway, but then it'll all flake off. Or I just paint the parts that I can get clean enough. This part, the float bowl, leave the rest unpainted. It'd be the only thing on the bike that is unpainted, I hope. I'd like to get this every part finished on this, but I just don't think that's realistic with how complicated this is to take apart with all these springs. To get it as clean as I can. Some of these bolts on here are a little rusty too, so I'm trying to clean that up as best I can. There's so many little cracks in here, and they're all plugged up with 30 years of junk because it never gets cleaned out under here. This screw bothers me. I don't want it to be the only friggin' screw with rust on it on my bike. This is gonna be underneath and no one's gonna look at it, but still, I don't want it to be the only one that's rusty. Might be the only place that's not painted, but I don't want it to be the only one that's rusty. You can see here too, it's so dirty. Pretty clean in there. Yep. Pen looks good. Just wiping it down now, getting it ready to put back together. Looks better. I mean, it doesn't look like it's brand new, and I'd rather have it painted, but I don't want to paint it with all these little parts. I just want to get it cleaned up. I've got some of the parts painted and they look pretty good, so I think that's going to be as good as the carburetor gets. As long as it works really good, I guess. It'll look nice too once I get the new parts on it that are painted. You can see in here, let me zoom in, where it was really dirty. In here now you can see where pieces are. The O-rings even you can see now. You couldn't see before. Yeah, this screw is still a little bit rusty. Not really happy about that, but there's just so many little parts on here. I would love to have powder coated the whole thing, but there's no way I can do that with all of these little bits and pieces. But it's polished up pretty good. And then I can assemble it again. Try to revitalize this rubber a little bit. There's some buildup in here that's pretty gucky from the airbox. You can see it. Looks like they put some sealer around here or something. It's still pliable, so I'm not too worried about this piece. Got this vinyl rubber polisher. Cleans this up pretty good. Actually, I'm going to grab the airbox and see what it does with that too, because it needs a good cleaning. It's in pretty rough shape. Okay, here is the air filter box. Looks pretty gross. I think I'm going to cut this bottom piece off. This is the toolbox underneath it. I may retain it and I may not. We'll see. Let's see how this stuff cleans it up. I'll take a look at what it looks like here before. Some of this is dust, but a lot of it is just build up over years and years. I mean, all of this is like on the inside, so it doesn't ever get cleaned. And I don't want to put any dirty pieces back on the bike, so I want everything, even if it's not visible, to be as clean as it can be. Yeah, that cleans it up nice, polishes it up okay. It's not like brand new, but at least it's clean now. This is the piece that needs a lot of cleanup. There's a ton of junk on this. This is separating here, so I'm going to take it apart and see what's in there even. Some kind of little filter, a pre-filter. Yeah, to figure out where everything goes again after. This is just the cover for the airbox, and polish it up to probably the cleanest part that I've had. But it does just need a little polishing up. It's just dusty. There's not globs of dirt all over it. Just revitalize this so it looks nice and clean and new. It's a little discoloration here down at the bottom. Maybe I'll give this a good coat of paint as well and revitalize it. This piece actually sits behind a side cover, but those side covers I'm going to have issues with because I'm changing the tank, and the side covers clip into the bottom part of the old tank. So if this looks nice enough, perhaps I don't have to use the side cover. I'll just keep the side cover off because this looks pretty good. So we'll give it some paint and see what it looks like. Let's buff this up a little bit and then see if we can't prime it and paint it. And maybe it goes underneath and maybe nobody sees it, but I know it's there and I know it's clean. This piece comes off of the airbox somewhere and it is pretty filthy, so I'm going to try and clean that up as best I can. Figure out what it does, open it up and see if it needs any repairs inside. Looks like it's coming apart here a little bit. See what's up. Well, I'm going to paint these two bolts black and this clamp too, because why shouldn't they be black? You know, match everything that's on the bike. Alright, so my big issue with this is there's a gap in here that the air could seep in, and unfiltered air will seep in there. Now, true, that's on the before filter side, the filter side over here, so it's still getting filtered, but I'm just going to try and use some of this gapping tape and build a bigger gasket so that it at least seals up a little bit in there. I just don't want any dust or getting in there, seeing how filthy that is. There we go. At least it's plugged up now and we got a good seal. Okay. This hose goes on the bottom and that just drips down out. There we go. Much cleaner and nicer than it was before. Excellent. Ready to go back on the bike. Once the bike's ready for it. Well, I like the finish on this so much, I went ahead and painted the rest of the airbox, the main part, and now it looks brand new. I really like it. Okay, I'll assemble this again. This only goes in one way, I think. I guess I better put the spring in there. I did throw some spray paint on this because why shouldn't it be black? Same as everything else. This goes on here. Alright, there's my carburetor. Looks pretty sharp.